This is a critical component that most candidates, when they're interviewing with the company, miss. And this is the simple follow-up. Hey, welcome to my channel. My name's Patrick. This is Patrick Recruiter. I spent a decade helped scaling small startups from just a handful of employees to hundreds globally. And today, I'd love to talk to you about this little detail called the follow-up and how to handle it when you are actively interviewing with the company. Let's get into it. So if you're asking yourself, should you follow up? The simple answer is yes. A follow-up note to the interviewer does a couple different things. It shows that you're genuinely interested in the opportunity, shows a little bit of initiative as well, that you took the extra step to write a follow-up and thank them for their time. And then more importantly, you're showing a little bit of graciousness as well, because indeed you are thanking them for the opportunity and thanking them for carving out some time of their day to speak with you about the role. A simple follow-up covers those three things. So who should you be following up with? It's really anybody that you interact with. But if you could narrow it down to the decision makers, those are typically the hiring managers and the recruiters. But before we even talk about how to follow up with a recruiter or hiring manager, let's take it one step before that. Let's talk about the interview itself. When you are speaking with a recruiter and when you are speaking with a hiring manager, it's very important at the end of the interview to ask them a simple question, which is, when can I expect to hear next steps? The main thing this does is actually it allows the company to set the timeline, and it also helps you understand how you should follow up. So if your interviewer says, we're going to be speaking with candidates this week, we plan on getting back to you early next week with feedback and next steps, then at least you know you have a week between now and the time that you're going to be expected to hear back from the interviewer. The follow-up note that you would send the following day, which I highly recommend you send 24 hours after your interview, would simply be kind of a thank you note for their time, expressing gratitude and thanks for them taking the time to interview you. So the note would look something like this. Hey recruiter, thank you again for taking the time to speak to me about X position. I really enjoyed our conversation learning more about the role and the company. The direction that it's headed seems very exciting. I'm looking forward to hearing next steps next week. Have a great rest of your week. That's a simple thank you for your time type of follow-up, because you know you're going to have a week in between when you spoke to the recruiter or the hiring manager and when they're expected to get back to you with feedback and next steps. Now, let's say you ended the interview and you have no idea when next steps are. You didn't ask that question, or the recruiter or the hiring manager did not give you any insight into what to expect next. The follow-up that you would send then is going to be slightly different. For example, 24 hours to 48 hours after your interview, you should send a follow-up note to the recruiter or the hiring manager that looks something like this. Hey recruiter, thank you again for your time. It was really great speaking with you about X position. I really enjoyed learning more about the company and the role and the direction that you guys are all headed in. I'm really excited about the next steps. When should I expect to hear back from you regarding next steps, and what do those next steps look like? Again, thank you for your time. That follow-up is slightly different than the one previous because we're not sure about the next steps or the timeline since they never gave it to us. So you simply have to ask that in the follow-up. You're still thanking them for their time and showing gratitude that, hey, they spent time with you to talk to you about your background and experience, and you show excitement for the role and show extra initiative by sending this simple thank you note and a follow-up note after your interview, but you're also asking that critical question, which is, what are the next steps and when should I expect to hear back from you regarding those next steps? These follow-ups should be sent 24 to 48 hours after speaking to either a recruiter or a hiring manager. So let's say the timeline that the recruiter or the hiring manager gave you for feedback has come and gone. You sent that follow-up thanking them for their time. You expected to hear back within the next week. You didn't hear anything back. Should you send another follow-up? Yes, you should. And it should be a little bit more direct in tone because they set the pace and they missed their mark on when they were expected to get back to you. So your follow-up will be, hey recruiter, hey hiring manager, thank you again for your time speaking last week. I really enjoyed learning more about the company. I was expecting to hear back from you yesterday. I haven't heard anything back, so just want to ping you to get an update on what the process looks like from here and when I can expect next steps. Your follow-up can be as simple as that, but it asks the question of when can I expect to hear back and what the next steps should be. So let's say another 24 to 48 hours goes by and you haven't heard back. I wouldn't let more than 48 hours go by before you actually send another follow-up. Here's a nice third follow-up. Hey recruiter or hiring manager, I was expecting to hear back from you earlier this week with feedback. So I want to drop you another follow-up again. My calendar is getting quite busy with other interviews that are taking up my schedule. If you have any next steps or what I can expect next in the process, that would be great, as my calendar is getting quite booked. This third follow-up email does a couple different things. It first brings your name back up to the top of the list. And then also it kind of subtly says like, hey, I was expecting to hear back from you like you said you were going to do, and I didn't hear back. That's kind of disappointing. And then third, it also shows that I'm actively interviewing elsewhere. My calendar is getting booked. My schedule is becoming a little bit busy. So if you do want to move forward in the process, now's the time to give me my next steps. That way I know where I stand and what I can expect. I know that's a little bit more of a gutsier approach, but by this point, they haven't already gotten back to you. Maybe you weren't the top candidate to begin with. At least you should know. Or maybe this lights a little bit of a fire underneath that recruiter or hiring manager that does think you're a good candidate for the role, but for whatever reason, they haven't been able to get back to you because maybe they're completing other interviews. Now they know that you're aggressively interviewing elsewhere and they might lose out on the opportunity to interview you. So that's a great follow-up message. When you sent a couple of follow-ups and still have yet to hear back, and you got to be a little bit more forward with your tone in that email to kind of show like, hey, I have other options and other opportunities. If you want to move forward, great. If not, at least let me know and let's move forward. Now, if you haven't heard back after 3 follow-ups, chances are, unfortunately, maybe the company doesn't think you're a right fit for the role, but they don't want to let you know directly, which is unfortunate. Or perhaps you just been ghosted, which is a whole nother thing. I'll link a video on why companies ghost candidates at the end of this video, but this has been happening forever and it is on the rise given the current state of our job market. So to go back to our previous example of you end an interview with a recruiter or a hiring manager and they don't give you a timeline on when to expect next steps. What you do is you send that follow-up like we discussed, thanking them for their time, showing interest in the role and the opportunity, and then asking them when you should expect to hear back regarding next steps. Let's say another 24 to 48 hours goes by. You have yet to hear back with any type of feedback or next steps. It is that time again to drop another follow-up to that recruiter or hiring manager. You can make it sound like, thank you for your time speaking the other day. It was great learning more about the company and the role. I'm really excited about next steps. What feedback do you have for me? And when can I expect to hear back with next steps? Talk to you soon. That can be a simple third follow-up that you send if you have yet to hear back and you have no idea regarding any type of timeline that the interviewer has on their side regarding next steps and providing feedback to you after the interview. I do have a pretty hard rule. If you don't hear back after 3 emails, you can send a 4th email. However, I feel like after 3 emails, if you have yet to hear back regarding feedback or next steps, chances are the company is just kind of ghosting you. It's probably time to focus your energy and effort elsewhere. That might be a hard reality, but that is the truth at the end of the day. Okay, so let's recap here. A follow-up is very important to do. You should be sending follow-ups 24 to 48 hours after your interview. You should be following up with the recruiter and the hiring manager. They are both decision makers in the process. Your follow-up does a couple different things. It shows interest in the role in the company, shows a little bit of initiative as well that you're taking the extra step to reach out to that interviewer, and then it shows a little bit of gratitude to that interviewer, thanking them for their time that they spent speaking with you about the role and the company. Your types of follow-up messages could be as simple as you understand the timeline on when you expect to hear back, so you're sending that simple thank you follow-up, which is thank you for spending time chatting with me about the role. It was great learning more about the company and the role. I'm really excited about next steps and look forward to hearing back from you. The second type of follow-up is you have no idea what the next steps are, so you send that follow-up, which is, hey recruiter or hiring manager, again, thank you for your time speaking with me. It was great learning more about the company and the position. When can I expect to hear back with feedback and next steps regarding the position? And then the third follow-up email is a little bit more aggressive. Hey recruiter or hiring manager, again, thank you for your time the other day speaking about the role in the company. I'm really excited about the next steps. I was hoping to hear back from you, but haven't heard anything back from you quite yet. My calendar is getting quite busy with interviews at other companies right now. If you do have feedback from me one way or the other, it would really help me navigate my search. Thank you again. Talk to you soon. So yes, you should be following up after your interview. If you ever get that nagging feeling, should I send a note? Should I not send a note? The answer is probably yes, you should send a note. So after your next interview, send that follow-up to show your interest, your initiative, and your gratitude for their time speaking with you. I hope this helps you in your job search. Follow for more interviewing, career, and recruiting insights.